I just want to say welcome to everybody to the 12th grade networking meeting. I am the principal, Bill Egan. I just wanted to say hi. Unfortunately, I will not be able to stay on this entire time. You'll see my kind of silhouette in the background. But at this point, I guess am I turning over to Karen, to Jody? Who am I turning this over to at this point? Or Claire?
Yeah, I'll take it from here. And first, we're going to have Jody, our PFA president, talk a few minutes about senior prom.
Yep, I just wanted to, while I have the 12th grade parents here, make sure everybody saw their email last Friday, I believe it was, with the date change to what we are now just going with the flow and calling the prom. So we have converted one into one event. What used to be prom and post-prom is now one great event on the back of the Waveney lawn. It's going to be fabulous. The team headed up by Rana Siegel and Maria Sweeney have an amazing vision to make our students feel super special. So please check out that email from last week, which has a link to buy the tickets. If I can figure it out during this, I'll put it even in the chat. I would encourage or ask, please, if your student intends to go, to try and buy your ticket sooner rather than later. This is not an event the PFA has ever undertaken to hold, and we're doing so only having gotten the green light in the last week or so. So where we normally fundraise all year, we hold Ram Jam and things like that. We weren't able to do any of that this year. So we're asking if you can buy your ticket sooner rather than later, we'd really appreciate that, as it will help us plan. If we don't have enough attendance, we risk not holding the event. I don't think that's going to happen. I know from talking with Principal Egan, the kids are totally excited, and there's, Instagram pages happening and all that kind of exciting stuff. So we're so thrilled to be able to offer this to them this year. We weren't sure for so long, but it's going to be a great night outdoors under the tents. Planned on Thursday, June 17th. So please check out that email. And if you are in a position to donate on top of the ticket, we are asking that because we are committed to providing a ticket for any student, whether they have the ability to pay or not. So those that can, we ask if you would help us support the rest of the students. They will be seeking help through the administrators. So we ask for your help there. And again, I think it's going to be amazing. The vision this team has is great. So I hope everybody will attend. Date, no date, doesn't matter. Just dress up and come and have a great night. So handing it back over now to Claire. Thank you, Claire.
Perfect. All right. So this morning, we're very lucky to have two speakers. First is Jerry Gertston, who's a parent of a senior and a lawyer in town at Lampert, Toohey, and Rucci. Jerry is going to cover the 4 legal documents that are typically used when your child turns 18 and goes to college. We also have Grace Burke, who is our Kids in Crisis resource at the high school, and she is going to discuss how to make the college transition easier on both parents and students. So good morning, and Jerry, please take it away.
Good morning. Well, thanks for having me. I think some of you may know my daughter Ava, who's a senior at the high school. It's timely because Ava's 18th birthday is tomorrow. So I'm going to surprise her with a whole set of legal documents. She doesn't know this yet, so don't say anything. That will enable me to continue to maintain control over my baby. Okay. So once children hit 18, they hit majority age. Most states have that as the age of majority. There are several that don't. We've got some down the south. Mississippi is still 21. Alabama, I believe, is 19. Nebraska is 19. All other states have the age of majority is 18. So once a child turns 18, they are now an adult. And as parents, we lose certain rights over them, unfortunately. This is especially, concerning when they're off to college and they're no longer physically near us, perhaps. And so what we do is to enable us to continue to maintain control over certain essential things that are important. Healthcare would be, the one that pops into, I think, everybody's mind, is have the child consider signing certain documents before they leave to enable us to continue to help them with respect to managing their health and their health care and their treatments. Within that umbrella, there are several documents that we would have the children signed before they left. And one would be an appointment of an agent where they would appoint, presumably it would be a parent, one of you, as their healthcare agent to enable them to continue to make healthcare decisions with them and for them and to access medical records. There are Connecticut statutes that cover this. It's completely legal. We're not doing anything that, this is not a gimmick or anything like that. It's standard basic healthcare agency forms that we would use. Connected to that also, and this would be on the grimmer side, would be a living will. And most children this age really haven't contemplated this kind of awful scenario where they're in a car crash and they're permanently unconscious and they're not coming back and they're being kept alive by life support alone. This is a document that I'm sure most of us are familiar with that has us express how we feel about being kept alive in a circumstance like that. And the children can consider whether or not they would want life support terminated. And I'm sorry to get so grim so early in the morning. It's Monday, right? But it's just part of the set of documents that most consider. And I do have, many students come in and just aren't quite ready for that. So that's just an X through that one. But it's something that should be considered, I think, since now they're adults and they have to start thinking about these things anyway. What we'd like to do is send drafts of these documents off first, of course, so everyone can take a look at them on the family side and just discuss them. So when they come in, they kind of already thought through how they feel about these sorts of things. So again, we have the healthcare agency form, which would allow a parent to continue to access medical records and work with doctors and such at the colleges to maintain that open communication for healthcare. We have a living will, again, vegetative state, no hope of recovery, being kept alive by life support alone. You don't want to live that way. You make a decision to terminate life support. Your healthcare agent is the one that works together with your doctors in making those sorts of decisions. Part of that form too is the anatomical gift, the organ donation, and I like to keep that consistent with the driver's licenses. If the child has changed their mind and started out not as an organ donor but now wants to be an organ donor, this document, the latest document that's signed, would be the one that controls. So that would cover the healthcare set. Most colleges, most doctors will work on copies of these healthcare documents. There's no reason for them to have originals. What we would typically do is when everything is signed and executed, we would PDF everything, get it off to the children. If they authorize us sending a copy to the parent or the agent too, we do that as well. And then those documents are then forwarded to the educational institutions. Just get it to the right person. The next document is more connected to business related things. It's a power of attorney. We use a statutory durable power of attorney, durable meaning that it survives incompetency. So if your child is in God forbid, a car crash or something, and we need to help with banking or anything financial connected to their lives, this document allows you to step in and act as their attorney, in fact, in helping with maintaining their finances. And again, the durable means that it survives incompetency. So if one of them is in a car crash, God forbid, they're in a coma or something like this, this document survives the incompetency. I don't like to make it springing power, which would mean that this is just a standard durable power that we would hold. It's active immediately as soon as it's signed. The springing power would define when the document would kick into effect. And then I'm having to get doctors involved with letters, and everything else becomes more complicated. Rather not do that. So we like to just use the durable power of attorney that's effective immediately. We can hold the original in our safe, for example, and not release it until it's needed. Again, this is the one document, unlike the healthcare, where an original would be required in order for you to use it. Most banks, transfer agents, trustees, whoever might be involved with your children's finances, won't accept a copy. They would want to see the original. So this is one document where you would need the original in order to act. The next document here that I'm just scrolling through would be, it's called a FERPA. It's a federal form that allows you to work with your children's colleges to access their educational records. Again, this was a law that was passed, I believe, back in the 70s that made it more difficult for parents and those who were trying to access children's medical records to access those records. So this form is a waiver of that of sorts. It just allows you as a parent to work with your children's college to enable you to continue to access their educational records. And so that's the next document here. We're looking at now, just to go back and just review quickly, we have a healthcare agency on the healthcare side. We've got the living will on the healthcare side. We've got an organ donation here. And we have the power of attorney that covers business related things. Connected to the power of attorney, if your child does have financial interests, and I get it once in a while, it's not that often, but I do get it, where you know, a will might be a good idea. Do that too. I see it less often with children, you know, the ages that our children are right now heading off to school. But if they do have assets, they do not have a will, it might be a good idea at this point to at least start to think about it. I'm not saying it's, you know, critical right now, but it's something that you at least think about. And we can help with that too if you need help in determining what to do. A lot of times when you're dealing with like bank accounts, let's say you want to set up an account for your child who's heading off to college. You can set up a separate checking account. You may have that set up already. I have people coming in. I'm just on a conference here. Okay. And so okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so you can set up a custodial account for them, which enables you to continue to maintain a custodial relationship over the account until the child hits 21 years of age under Connecticut rules. All right, so that's another way you can maintain some control over money that's being given to the children when they head off to school. I know some clients say, look, I'm going to throw $10,000 in a checking account for my child so they can, you know, have money to spend on their own. But I still want to maintain some control over it to make sure that I'm receiving, you know, the statements, to make sure the money's being spent prudently. And you can do it that way too. So when you blend in the custodial account option for your children when they head off together with the power of attorney that they would sign, perhaps a will, you've covered their financial world. All right. So the idea here really is to, as they head off, to make sure that you're still able to help with healthcare and their financial world. We lost that. As soon as Ava's 18 tomorrow, I lost it tomorrow. It's done. You know, if I go to her doctor and try to access medical records, they're not going to give it to me anymore. So it can become a problem. Let's just see. I'm just going through some of the notes that I took. If there's any ancillary issues connected to any of this, let's see. Yeah, the one thing again I would do is, you know, either us or your attorney, who does your T&E work, I would have them first send a set of the documents to you for review with your kids. It's something that, you know, I'll have clients come in with their kids sometimes, and the kids really haven't cycled through what it is they're signing. And so I'll get the deer in the headlight thing where it's like, holy smokes, you know, what's this living will? You know, I mean, if I'm in a coma, I'm not sure what I want to do. They seem a little confused sometimes. So I would take some time to have them review it, just so they understand what the ramifications are, because these are powerful documents. I know they're young, and you know, some of it might not be applicable to them with respect to, you know, the power of attorney, for example, but they're still powerful documents, and they're adults now, and they should understand what they mean and what the ramifications of signing them are. Okay. Let me just see here. If there's anything else here that I'm just scrolling through, and some notes that I took for you. I think, well, it's pretty simple, you know, in terms of what it is we're trying to accomplish. So there's not much more for me to get into, really. I mean, that's an overview of how these work and what the concerns are with respect to us sending our young ones off to school. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think, Claire, you had mentioned that I'm gonna just stay connected to you. If there are questions, we'll do that later, or do you want me to field anything now if there are any questions connected to any of this?
We have a couple of questions, but if you don't mind, we're going to do Grace's presentation and then hold off to the questions at the end.
All right, well, that's the general overview. Thanks for having me. We're happy to help. Again, I've been running the trust and estates practice here at Lampert, Toohey and Rucci for the last dozen years or so, and I have my own practice in Manhattan for, it's hard to believe, almost more than 30 years now. So with, any other questions connected to any of this that you've got, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. It's not my first rodeo here, so. Okay, I will.
If you want to answer, Jerry, there's a couple of questions in the chat. If you want to answer them, you can
Okay,
answer
how do I
them.
do that?
If you just go down to the bottom, there's a Q&A
Okay.
on the bottom of your screen, but you don't have to. We can answer, but let's do them all at the end because I
Oh,
know.
yeah, so I do see it, I see it.
Okay.
Can you assign one power? Okay, let's knock it off, just a couple. Can you assign one agent parent as power of attorney with a successor agent that parent is deceased? Yes. I always recommend having more than one person in there, just in case the first person can't do it. We like successors. Successors are important. If you come to us, we have like a template that we send out on these college exercises that tells you exactly what we need, and typically we'll ask you for the name of an agent together with a backup, a successor. Okay. The name of the federal form is FERPA. Is the federal form for education, and I can get the federal educational. Let me just get to it and see if I have a copy open. Yeah, I do. It's the the disclosure of parents of dependent students and consent. I'm just trying to see if I have the actual. It's the federal. It's a FERPA, FERPA, and I'm just not remembering all of what the letters stand for here, unfortunately. But it's out there. It's FERPA. And do we file the healthcare agency form with the doctor and university? Yeah, the healthcare forms you would just supply to both your doctor and the university as well. They'll have most universities have a nurse's office, for example. They'll have administrative offices that will tell you how they're to receive these documents. Each college does it slightly differently from what my experience is, and you send it to different administrative subsections of their institution. So I would contact, after the forms are done, I would contact the administrators, tell them you've got a healthcare agency form and a power of attorney together with a FERPA. Where do you send them? They may have you splay them out and send them to different places, depends on the college. So that's a couple of questions that I see here. If there's anything else in here, anybody else? Would that be it, Claire?
I think that's it for right now. So we'll let Grace go and see if anyone else pops on.
All right. So again, feel free to help. I think, Claire, you had given our contact information and something. It's got the best way to do this, I think, if you want to use the firm here with us. Would be to call me. I have a direct line in there, because sometimes when I get emails, it will go into my spam folder and I might miss it. The other thing that I can tell you is that we're in May. I think a lot of the kids are heading off to school in August, right? So time flies. And so it's just something that, you might want to, if you're interested in doing it, talk to your attorney or come to us. But sooner rather than later would probably be better, just to get it moving. Because before you know it, they're off and they're gone, That's the only other thing I can say. Yeah, there we go. The Federal Educational Report Privacy Act. Someone just posted that. The Federal Educational Report Privacy Act, FERPA. Okay, so Claire, do I just, how do I bow out now? Do I just mute myself?
Yeah, you can just mute yourself. That's perfect.
Okay, so I'll go over here on mute, but I'll just, there we go. Okay, folks.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Jerry.
You're welcome.
We'll turn it over to Grace.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I did make a PowerPoint just to keep track of my thoughts. So I'm going to share my screen with you and make sure I'm in presentation mode. Okay. So I wanted to first just introduce myself. My name is Grace. I'm here at the high school. I'm the Teen Talk counselor. If you haven't heard about Teen Talk before, it's a program ran through Kids in Crisis, which is a nonprofit in Greenwich. And we are placed around schools in Fairfield County to provide mental health support. So we are housed in the schools, but we work for Kids in Crisis. Of course, we work really closely with all the mental health staff here, the teachers. I'm here regular hours, but it's a nice extra layer of privacy for students. And we are specifically trained in crisis intervention, risk assessment, and really helping with any mental health needs that students may have. I am new to New Canaan High School this year, but there's been a Teen Talk counselor here for a really long time. I went to New Canaan High School, and when I was here, there was a Teen Talk counselor here. And, it's a really well-established relationship, which is great. And anecdotally, I did want to mention that I am familiar with the community. I'm from here. I graduated in 2012. I had 3 siblings go through the high school, and we all went on to pursue higher education and really felt like the high school prepared us well for so many different things because of webinars like this and just the staff here being so encouraging about the higher education process. Today, I really wanted to focus on anticipating any challenges that may come up over the next year as kids start the journey of higher education. And for parents, I think one of the most important things to talk about is ongoing communication. Sometimes I hear, once you're 18, as we just heard, there is so much more legal freedom and they're adults now. In the eyes of the law, they're adults. And some parents take more of a hands-on approach, especially with communication, thinking like, I don't want to bother them. They're probably so busy. They'll call me if they need me. And I think during the first couple of months, especially, it should maybe even be an opposite approach of kind of all hands on deck. Students are used to having their friends here. They know the staff really well, teachers, coaches, advisors, guidance counselors, their parents, aunts, uncles, family. And then they get to this new place and they have to reestablish all these connections. So reminding the students that you're there for them and you want to hear about the small things in their life can help ease that transition. And if you do notice some changes over the phone, in text messages, FaceTimes, then maybe it's time to probe a little bit more about how the transition is going. So things to look out for could be significant weight loss, weight gain, irritability on the phone that sounds different for them, if they're having trouble sleeping, overeating, undereating, and any excessive worry. Of course, it's normal to be stressed as you start this new experience, but if it sounds like a really recurring stress and worry about things that maybe aren't as dangerous as you think that they should be worried about, it's maybe time to probe a little bit more. And when I say that, I really mean to ask difficult questions about thoughts of hurting themselves or thinking about, not wanting to be here anymore and any passive suicidal ideation. I did stick in this grim statistic of 1 in 4 young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 say they've considered suicide in the past month. And that was a national poll of this past August, really peak pandemic times. And I don't know how that statistic resonates in the New Canaan community. It is a polling of, hundreds of thousands of young people, but just to remind students that even if it doesn't look like they're struggling, it never hurts to ask. And something I've heard from parents, students, all people I've worked with in the field is that the fear around asking about things like this is that you'll plant the seed or give them an idea. And really, that is not how thoughts of hurting yourself work. If anything, people feel relieved and know that you're open to talk about these things and just, move on quickly. And that's also something important to talk to your students about. If they're worried about a friend, asking that question won't give them the idea to maybe do something like this. I also think with communication, it is important to be honest about your own mental health experiences with your children. most of you, I'm sure, have not tried to support students in starting college in this pandemic in the year we've had. So it's new for you, and sometimes students, being reminded of that, of like, I haven't done this either, and I'm hoping for the best, and I'm here with you, can be a sense of relief. We don't have to fake it till we make it with our kids. And, with all the challenges I spoke about, I wanted to talk specifically about the effects of this pandemic, and really, getting into the fact that processing this last year really won't happen linearly. And, things may come out in a couple weeks. It may come out during, the best times of the summer when they're not under that academic stress. And it may seem like their feelings aren't aligning with all the positive things that are happening. Like right now with the vaccines, we're seeing such progress. Things are opening up, sports are back. But I found that the high school anxiety is at an all-time high, which doesn't necessarily align with the relief we're feeling about the pandemic. So 2 terms I wanted to discuss is this kind of new term in the mental health field called auto stress. I'm just going to read the definition because I think the doctor who really coined this term explains it best. Auto stress describes what happens when our body's stress response goes into auto response. Dr. John Arden explains, like an autoimmune disorder that hijacks the immune system. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm just going to move this over. The stress response system into something that attacks the self rather than protect it. If your body is in auto stress mode, you'll experience a wide range of physical stress symptoms in an ongoing basis, regardless of your situation. That's why people often report feeling anxious for no apparent reason. If you're suffering from high levels of distress triggered by the pandemic, you might continue to feel this way after the virus has passed. And if you were experiencing high levels of stress, before last March, and this has exacerbated those feelings of stress and anxiety and overwhelming, demands from all different aspects of our lives, then your body might have already been in auto stress. And kids process things differently, and sometimes it might not be on an expected timeline, and they might still be feeling anxious when they do have friends and they do have family and they love school, and they're not sure why they're feeling these high levels of stress. So that's just something to look out for. The next thing I want to mention is equifinality, which is this concept that there are multiple paths to the same goal. And when we think about kids going to college, of course, we want them to learn, we want them to do well, we want them to be prepared to enter the working world. But the real goal of college and higher education is that our kids are happy and healthy, and there are many ways to do that and support them in that. And the paths look different for students across the board. I next wanted to talk about managing those expectations. If students are feeling more stressed, there can be a pressure to really hide those feelings or maybe suppress them. Some things that I've heard, not just this year, but especially this year, is these are going to be the best 4 years of your life. You're going to have so much fun. I'm so jealous you're going off to school. It's going to be such an amazing experience, which for the most part is true, but college is filled with ups and downs, and it's natural to feel uncomfortable throughout the undergraduate experience. And really normalizing the down parts gives students the opportunity to express when maybe they're not having the easiest time. Something I've heard a lot when I went here and also working here is that if you can make it through New Canaan High School, you'll be fine in college. I do think the students here are very prepared academically and will not struggle with different courses and the curriculum at that level. However, it does add to a sense of shame if they do need extra help or if they are struggling with specific classes. I think they are really well prepared, and the teachers here do a good job of really laying a solid groundwork to take on difficult courses, but that doesn't mean that there won't be difficult times academically. There are plenty of opportunities to make friends and meet people. While that, of course, is true, and college is a great time to connect with people you may not typically connect with, it sometimes leads to a stigma of feeling like I'm in all these clubs, I have a great roommate, I love the people on my floor, but I don't feel that friend connection like I did at New Canaan High School. And a lot of the times the transition can be lonely. and isolating. The students here, especially if they came through the elementary and middle school, are used to spending so much time with people that really know them inside and out. And sometimes that connection with new people takes a while to feel like you are seen by your friends and feel comfortable. Another thing I hear all the time is you won't know if it's a good fit until you're at least a sophomore. And the transition time is hard, and I'm sure students feel a lot of doubt of, is this the right choice? Especially students this year, if you've never even visited the college that they're committing to. And that's why I just wanted to highlight the transfer rate for students who start a four-year institution across both public and private schools is 38.5%. So 38.5% of students transfer within their four-year college experience, which is very high, and it's for so many different reasons. And I understand why parents don't want to immediately jump to like, well, maybe it's not a right fit. So that statistic there is really just to acknowledge that is an option, and it is very common, even if it's not common within your students' friend groups. And lastly, if so-and-so can finish in 4 years, so can you. Of course, we want students to stay on track. We don't want to pay any extra tuition or take any extra courses. But the average time it takes students to finish at a four-year university across both private and public schools is 5.1 years. There's a lot of situations that call for time off, that call for maybe, taking a semester at a community college, and that is a normal part of the process as well. This is something that speaks to the first bullet point I just mentioned there. It's a quote I like about toxic positivity. It's a forced false positivity. It may sound innocuous on the surface, but when you share something difficult with someone and they insist that you turn it into a positive, what they're really saying is, my comfort is more important than your reality. And I just wanted to highlight this because especially the first 2 weeks of college is so much silver linings, glass half full. There's a place for everyone here. You're going to love it. And there's not a lot of room for, it can be lonely. This may be hard for you. So this speaks to more one-on-one interactions, but at school there is a lot of pressure to feel like it is the perfect fit. I next wanted to talk about making friends and peer relations. I think this year especially, it's important to talk to students about meeting peers where they're at. And what I mean by that is that this year has been so challenging and has included grief and loss for everyone. Even if it is small things, the senior class has lost so many small milestones that really build on students and have taken a toll. But there are also, a range of experiences that students may not be prepared to talk about. So, when they're trying to make friends, maybe talking to students about how to respond to disclosures of difficult situations. Maybe students and people that students here want to be friends with have really taken on the trauma of all the social challenges this year and, seeing all the violence in the news, and knowing how to respond when students are honest about their struggle is something to talk about with students. And this last thing about reminding kids they don't need to stick with friends or clubs that they don't feel connected with. I think it's hard when everyone at New Canaan is so supportive. It may feel like you have to stay with people because they are nice to you and because you have mutual interests, but there really is no pressure to stay with a club just because you signed up, or go to lunch with someone if you really don't feel like it's going to be mutually beneficial. I wanted to also highlight, as they go into this next chapter of their lives, parents, and I've also mentioned this to teachers here as well, students benefit so much from positive reinforcement. And even as they're 17, 18, 19 years old, what we tell our children becomes their inner voice. And this year may not have gone as we had hoped. Maybe your student got their first C, maybe they've got their first, F, maybe they failed their first course, maybe they had to quit the lacrosse team. Maybe they had to, stop doing all these things that you had planned for their senior year, but acknowledging that regardless of your initial expectations, they made it through a difficult year is really worth acknowledging. So that when they are in difficult times in college, they hear your voices saying, like, I did a good job. I have a lot to be proud of. I am smart. I am capable. and implementing the idea that everyone is doing their best and there's room for improvement at the same time. That dichotomy will carry them in so many different situations. And this example here, I know this class was hard. Maybe next semester we can think about ways to communicate that earlier. And lastly, a piece on communication. If your student calls and is stressed or overwhelmed, you can always ask, do you want me to help you solve this problem, or do you need me to just listen? That sometimes can save students and parents a lot of energy in those conversations. And returning from breaks. I know this may seem far away, but before you know it, your student will be hopefully coming home for Thanksgiving or even longer over the holiday break. And it will be an adjustment. Sometimes there's pressure when the family's all back together around it being perfect, everyone catching up, and really setting the expectations around family commitments, time with their siblings, and if the house rules still apply. Do you guys have to eat together? Do they have a curfew? Are they responsible for driving younger siblings, maybe like they are in college? And trying to get ahead of, the adjustment that it takes and being flexible with that. Especially with bigger families, it can feel like it has to be a perfect, visit home, when really it's an adjustment for everyone at home and the college student returning. Mental health resources that I wanted to talk about quickly is the silver lining of telehealth options. If you anticipate your student may have some mental health challenges in adjusting to college, an option is to connect with someone in New Canaan or in Connecticut while they're here, meet with them in person a few times, and then continue that relationship. So that way, if they are needing extra support, they don't have to start the process over again or meet a new person once they're there. And the student health centers, from my experience and what the other teen talk counselors have mentioned when I was talking about this presentation, is in college, the RA, the health center, all of the mentors that students are set up with tell them, go to the health center, we have a health center, go to the clinic, talk to someone there. But really they're set up for a very limited scope of practice. On the spectrum of, thriving and in crisis, the student health center is really only there for the crisis situations, and they really only have space to, see students 3 times, 4 times, 5 times to get them stabilized. So in the hopes of more preventative care, finding what other mental health resources and health options, local clinics are there, can help save a lot of energy, especially when students are feeling, like they do need extra help and are already overwhelmed by that process. These are some resources and hotlines that I refer students to day to day while I'm here that maybe you're not as familiar with. The first one has a chat and online response option, which I really like. A lot of students are comfortable talking on the phone. And the bottom 2 are Connecticut warm lines. Hotlines are important and play their role, but maybe students want to practice reaching out for help or see what resources are in the community. They can always call a warm line. And lastly, these are some articles that I have found really helpful this past year and while thinking about the college transition. The first one is about a student who didn't get into the school that they had planned on and had spent most of their high school career preparing to go to an Ivy League school and got rejected. And this therapist and mental health provider that I personally love responded to that experience and how to cope with it. The second one is more about the anticipation of hearing back from schools. And the last one is this feeling of burnout and kind of longingness that everyone is feeling right now. And the term is languish. And I think the New York Times does a really great job talking about this feeling of feeling unmotivated, but not necessarily depressed, feeling like, things are looking better, but you don't feel as hopeful as you thought. And really this middle ground that the pandemic has made us feel. And because I went here, I know how important it is to cite your sources. So this is where I got my data from. And that's my contact information. Sorry, I know I'm speaking very quickly. I hope I didn't go over too long, but I just wanted to get everything in.
Thanks, Grace. That was great. Let's see if we have any. Grace, is there a way for you to share the presentation, or we can send it out so that we have a parent who's requesting the links to the articles?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I can also put them in the chat and send the presentation out, but just copy and paste the links from the PowerPoint right now.
That'd be great.
Okay.
I think we've answered the first two questions. Are there any additional questions? I know Jerry answered those before he hopped off. Oh, you know what, Grace?
And
someone
I can
else-
also send out the
Any
PowerPoint.
questions? I'm sorry.
Click the cameras if you right up.
Okay,
There we go.
all right, sorry. All right,
And we can post the presentation on the PFA website where the recordings are. I think if you share that with one of us, Grace will get that done.
Perfect.
Do we have any additional questions for Jerry or Grace?
okay,
All right, you guys did such a great job.
all set. Okay,
There was one question, Claire, about, did we answer that one? Do some of the forms come from the college? I think. the
Oh.
forms-
Jerry, do the colleges send any forms, or this is all something that you do preemptively on your end?
well, they may have a FERPA form that they issue. Some colleges do that, but the power of attorney and the healthcare are something we do on our side. They wouldn't, they may offer it just as a service, you know, but I haven't, no, I don't have experience with that. I would say most of them might have the FERPA form for the access to the educational records. The rest of the documents are moving into like a quasi, you know, a legal sphere. And I think they kind of stay away from it, but they may post samples, you know, on their websites. But, you know, the children are Connecticut domiciliaries right now. And I think I would prefer to have the documents Connecticut centric as a result, even though they're going to college and they're going to be living there, they're still domiciled here in Connecticut. So I think we should have Connecticut centric forms for them. That answers the question.
Great.
But the FERPA is just an educational standard form that doesn't really change. That's a nationwide form, we'll call it. And the colleges should have samples of those.
All right, anyone else? And Jerry, I did put your direct line into the chat as well.
Okay, yeah, thanks. If anyone
Someone
needs,
asked for that.
that's the best way. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up for today then.
Okay,
All right. Thank you to Jerry and to
Thanks for having
Grace for your time and all your help, and we really appreciate it. And I think this is our last networking event at the high school. It's kind of sad. We move on and move forward, and I'm glad we're all, things seem, as you said, Grace, things are looking a little more normal, which is great for everyone. So, all right, wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.